Welcome to The Mountain Pass, a podcast about lifelong learning, curiosity, and our wonderful brain. Topics we love at Alp Audio. But this isn't a podcast about Alp the product. Rather, it's conversations driven by our curiosity. And while from the outside TypeDream looks really impressive and smooth sailing, if you read Michelle's story for how their team founded TypeDream, it actually wasn't all smooth sailing. They started out with Govist, which turned into a new company called Cotter, which eventually led to TypeDream. And I wanted to get this founding story of her team of 5 co-founders and how building in public, something that Michelle is very active about on Twitter, how that fits into being a team of 5 of a venture-backed startup. Enjoy. Michelle, welcome to the Mountain Pass. It's great to have you here. It's great to dive into building in public. This is actually the second interview on the topic that I'm doing, and I'm super happy to have you here because I've been reading your Twitter threads. I love what I read, and so I'm excited to have you on the Mountain Pass.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Great. So I figured we would start with some background, who you are, who your team of 5 co-founders are, the founding story of TypeDream, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Michelle. I was born and raised in Indonesia. It's in Southeast Asia, but I moved to San Francisco for college in 2015. And I met my other 4 co-founders in college at our first computer science class in college. And we've been building projects ever since, starting from small school projects to outside of school projects to larger projects and eventually startup ideas before TypeDream, until TypeDream. So I graduated in 2019, got a day job just for 3 months, and then I decided to apply to YC and quit my day job.
What was the day job?
The day job was at a tech company here in San Francisco.
Oh, so you were really on the kind of the paved highway to success.
Well, yeah, my co-founders and I, we were all in tech. We've always been interested in tech. So after graduation, we just took a tech job, all 5 of us. But then we were interested to make our own company, apply to YC, and just quit our day jobs.
Cool. Kind of the classic startup story. Except you dropping your day job, not dropping out of college. But I have some, I mean, it's not inside information because you've done a tweet thread about it, but there was a tweet thread you put out about the founding story for TypeDream, where it wasn't such smooth sailing. You guys interned at a company from YC, and then you went to build something, and then you shifted that. I'd kind of love to hear about the different startups / pivots until you landed on TypeDream.
Yeah. So our journey started in around 2017. We were really interested in crypto at that time because crypto was booming. That was when Bitcoin first hit to $20,000 USD. We were into crypto that we did a crypto arbitrage because the price of Bitcoin here in the US versus in Southeast Asia, where we're from, was like around 20% different. So we bought it in the US, transferred it to Southeast Asia, and sold it there. Not only that, we were really interested that we even built our own crypto trading app for Southeast Asia because it was non-existent back then in Southeast Asia. So we basically just copied Coinbase and made it for Southeast Asia.
Love it.
Yeah, we didn't get to really launch it though because the hype died down in just like 6 months or something. Like by the beginning of 2018, the crypto world was like not hyped anymore, so we didn't really get to launch it. But it was our junior or senior year of college, and we started applying for internships because we wanted to intern one more time before we graduated. Before we graduate, so we applied to this YC company who does stock trading, and we applied to this company because they were looking to build a crypto trading system as well. So we were like, oh, this is a good fit since we have one, right? So we interned at them, and turns out they're a YC company. So we talked to the founders, and the founders advised us to also apply to YC. They were actually the one who told us that it's better to take the leap right now when you're young, when you have no dependent, no kids, no wives. So yeah, it's better to do it now because the younger you are, the lower your risk cost is.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. We were
Uh-huh.
just talking about this before we hit recording. Lower cost of risk, more work hours during the day, younger body, all kinds of
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah. So yeah, so we like thought about it. We just basically spent time thinking about another startup idea. So meanwhile, we graduated and got a day job. But then just 3 months after graduating and being in that day job, we all dropped our day jobs and applied to YC. And fortunately, 1 month after applying to YC, we got in. So it wasn't
Wow.
that much of a risk, turns out.
Wait, so what idea did you spin up for YC, or was it still the crypto trading platform?
It was it was Robinhood for Indonesia. So we were trying to sell US stocks in Indonesia. And the idea actually came from the fact that we interned at that YC company who does stock trading. So we were interested in doing in like selling US stocks in Indonesia because stocks in Indonesia is not enticing enough. Like the stocks there are not as hyped up as Apple and other US stocks. So even our friends asked us to like put some money in our Robinhood account and asked us to buy some portions of Apple or something for them. So we thought, why not just enable them to trade US stocks, right?
Right. To
But then
give
in the
them
middle of
access to the American
to
stock
give them
market.
access, yes, because Indonesian stock market is just not as fun. But then in the middle of YC, we pivoted to another idea, and the learnings there was because we were not the right person to be in fintech because the capital is really high, the capital required, and then we just didn't have the licenses and everything. And to obtain the license, we needed a bunch load of money that we didn't have at that time, even with funding. And then the regulations were really tight. Like they didn't allow Indonesians to trade foreign stocks because they just want the money to be in the country. So yeah, we pivoted to Cotter. And the story behind Cotter is actually from our US stock trading app. So when we were building the US stock trading app, when we were building the login function, turns out people in Southeast Asia and in developing countries mostly, they don't use email and password to log in to an app or to a website. They use phone numbers and one-time passwords instead because I don't know, for some reason people there just don't use email as much as we do here in the US. So knowing that they have to use phone number and one-time password, we decided to build Cotter, which is exactly that. People to add phone number or email plus one-time password login to their websites or apps. So they don't have to build it themselves in-house.
Which is actually the way you log into TypeDream today.
Yes, exactly. We
Okay.
use our previous product, which is Cotter.
Got it. Got it. What
Yeah,
was
so
what was the
mhm,
sorry to kind of cut in the middle. I'm
no
just
worries.
curious
Mm-hmm,
the shift from the original fintech idea to Cotter,
mm-hmm,
right? Very,
mm-hmm.
very, very different. Also very different from the crypto, because the first two kind of ideas you were working on were B2C, finance, and all of a sudden, Cotter is a developer focused tool. So it's also a different
Yes.
market. It's also seems, at least to
Uh-huh.
me, like a different skill set. Um,
Yeah.
so what was that kind of, was it very clear cut that the fintech idea was not the way to go and Cotter was just much more obvious and also spoke to you much more? Or was there a lot of
Yes.
a mess there?
It was actually a clear cut that we didn't want to pursue fintech anymore because of the regulations and the amount of capital we need to have. When we pivoted from the crypto trading app to the US stock trading app, we haven't even explored the regulation and everything because we didn't end up exploring the idea after making the product. Yeah, but when exploring deeper into the US stock trading app, we realized that we just don't want fintech, not now at least, because we don't have the capital and the regulations are just hard for us. So yeah, we decided to pivot into Cotter because we found this opportunity from building the US stock trading app.
And the team reached consensus pretty easily, it sounds like.
Yes, because we literally stopped doing the finance app, right?
Right. Okay. So you start working on
Yeah.
Cotter, you start building the
Mhm.
development tools, and then what
Mhm.
happens?
What happens was we then figured out again that developers don't really like to pay for something. They would rather build they would rather build it themselves in-house because they can. So we explored the no-code space. That was when we first got introduced to the no-code space. So we were building plugins for WordPress, Webflow for people to add login system to their Webflow or WordPress websites. Um, that was when we started receiving requests to build Cotter plugin for Notion. So we were surprised. Like Notion is a note-taking app. Why would you need a login for Notion, right? Um, and then they told us that they built their websites on top of Notion, so they need a login. So we were like, why? There are a bunch of website, no-code website builders already, right? Why would you use this note-taking app as a website builder? And that's when we figured out that people just love Notion so much because the interface is very familiar. It's a note-taking interface, just like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And another technical term is it's a what you see is what you get editor, such that you can just type on the block you want to type right away. Versus if you use other no-code website builders, if you want to edit a block, then you click on that block and a form will pop up on like somewhere on the left of the screen and you have to fill out that form, like not right away on the block that you want to edit. So yeah, we saw that problem that people are having and we decided to dig deeper, like what's missing from Notion to website. And then they gave us two more points, buttons and navigation bars. Like since Notion is built for note taking, their features are not catered to website building. So making a button in Notion is very hacky, such that they have to edit the CSS to make it actually look like a button, like rounded buttons. And then making navbars are also hacky, such that they have to transform columns into navbars. So seeing this opportunity, we just decided to make a Notion-like editor. So it's not on Notion, it's independent of Notion, but it's similar to Notion, but we cater the functions to website building. And that's how TypeDream was born.
Cool. So really coming through, I guess, talking to users and hearing their needs and then kind of going with that
Yes.
and the market research of, hey,
Yeah.
there isn't Notion for website building.
Exactly. So like TypeDream is from Cotter and Cotter is from our previous stock trading app. So it's like
A continuation.
a continuation, exactly. It
Yeah.
really is a journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I've used Type Dream for two websites and honestly
Hmm.
loved it. And after I used it, I just went on Twitter and I started following
Hmm.
all of the co-founders. I found
Thank
you
you.
called people simps, and I couldn't quite figure
Yes.
that out.
That's
It's I guess because I'm a boomer
actually a Gen Z
millennial.
term.
Yeah, I was like, I'm too old. I'm too old for this. I'm too old by like 6 or 7 years. I don't get it.
But do
But
you know it now?
I still haven't figured it out. I think it means
Okay.
like a sympathizer, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So this is what it means. So Gen Zs, when they would like just do anything for their partner, like their boyfriends or girlfriends, like they would sometimes even do stupid things, and we call them sips. Like for example, if you would drive 100 miles just to see them every single weekend, then we would call them simp. But
Okay.
it's not like a serious term. It's a mocking term, but it's not serious. So
I
yeah, we it's like a meme term.
got it. I think
So,
we have like a similar term, but
mhm.
it's not a simp. It's kind of like well trained. I think if we'd laugh at friends
Uh-huh.
or who basically do that, like, the
Okay.
he's a well trained husband, she's a well trained
Well
wife.
trained. Okay,
Like that, yeah,
interesting.
there's a slang word, but it's not coming to mind.
Okay. Okay. All
So
right. Yeah. Well, basically, it's not an insulting term. Like the Gen Zs just use it casually, and we call them that because last time we had this program. It's called the SIM program, in which they would tweet about us to get into Type Dream because it was waitlist only at that time.
okay, now it's
Yeah.
coming together. Got it. Because I kept on seeing it on Twitter and I wasn't quite sure what it was. I was like, I get the general
Yeah.
sense, we love our simps love us, but I was like,
Yeah.
I don't quite get it. Um, but while I was kind of scrolling on Twitter and trying to find the
Uh-huh.
founding story, I
Mhm.
noticed that, and I reviewed this kind of preparing for our chat today, but your Twitter only becomes active kind of in your original content not so long ago. And I couldn't find anything for Cotter, let's say, and I couldn't find anything for the
Uh-huh.
previous companies. And it got me really curious, especially listening to your story just now, because part of at least what I hear in the story is like a lack of market validation, we'll call it, or kind of understanding the the user problem, whether it's in Indonesia, which you understood well, and then in Qatar that, let's say, devs weren't willing to pay. And one of the goals or one of the benefits of building in public, which we're about to dive into, is that you get all of that feedback. And so
Yes.
it might have been really helpful had you been doing it back then. And I was just kind
Yeah.
of wondering what made you start and when exactly did you start?
Yeah. So I started around June or July of this year, and there was no like exact point of what made me start, but I just reactivated my Twitter account and started following no code people since we're in the no code space, and discovered that people tell their stories in public. Like they talk about what they're building, even to the exact features that they're currently building, their successes, their failures. And I just enjoyed myself reading those stories. And after a few weeks of just reading the stories, I decided, oh, why don't I join and tell my own story? So the first story that I told the public was about us getting into YC. And it received a lot of engagement and replies and DMs. So my journey building in public started from there.
Cool. So you also had a good starting story. I think founding stories are probably some of the most popular, but you also got engagement from
Mhm.
the beginning, which is fantastic. I was chatting with Kivan Chung last week about
Mhm.
building in public. And
Uh-huh.
he's the founder of Public Lab, and
Mhm.
he's actually got an ebook on building in public. And one of
Mhm.
the things he said, kind of one of the tips he
Mhm.
gave, was that when you build in public, you should start with a
Uh-huh.
circle of friends who can support you. So, like, did you have something like that, or did you just send it out into the ether and the Twitterverse supported?
Yeah, for me, I before I did my first tweet, I actually followed a bunch of no code people and some people in the build in public space, and some of them just followed me back. So when I did my first tweet, the one who actually retweeted or responded were my following slash followers from the community, but we weren't really friends yet at that time because I never talked to them. So only after from that first tweet did we start to engage with each other.
Wow, awesome. Awesome. I wonder if they know what
Yeah, so
simp
it was
means.
a bit different.
Cool. So I guess for Type Dream and for you as one of
Mhm,
the co-founders, like what does the building in public playbook mean? Also, just kind of on a
mhm,
higher level. And then
uh-huh.
also on a more granular level, just as a team of co-founders or as a startup, how do you think about it? Do you think about it for the company? Do you think about it for yourself?
Um, so build in public for our team, we think of building in public as like our sixth co-founder, if that makes sense. Because rather than, for example, if we have an idea, rather than just discussing from the five of us, since the five of us come from the same background, I think if we have an idea or if we have a point of view, then our point of view would almost be the same because of our background. Like we've been living together for like 6 years. We hang out with the same people. We do the almost the same thing. So we don't have this unique point of view that we need very much. So when we started to just share our ideas in public, people give us feedback that we never thought of before. So Build in Public really functions as a sixth co-founder for us.
Got it. And then when you think about it, I guess as that person who's part of the team,
Uh-huh.
is it Kivan gave this great metaphor of building in
Uh-huh.
public for him is kind of like a restaurant with an open bar where or an open kitchen where you come as a guest and you see how the food is made. Um, I'll say for me personally, a lot of my sharing in public, building in public, more often than not, they're retrospectives, right? So we did a product hunt launch. I shared about that. I shared about growing to 10,000 users and kind of summarizing learnings from periods and being transparent about it and being open about it and sharing what was easy and what was hard, what we did well, what we got wrong. Um, but that's very different than sharing, like actual cooking in the kitchen. Like I'm building a new website. What do you think of its layout? We're debating about pricing. What do you think about these pricing tiers? Does that make sense? Is that kind of a like which one do you think you fall into more naturally, or do you even think about them that way? Do you see a difference?
Like comparing building in public versus cooking in public.
um, no, kind of sharing like retroactive stories.
Hmm.
So you have a tweet thread on your launch on Product Hunt, right? And you shared
Uh-huh.
that basically like after the launch on Product Hunt,
Yes.
versus let's say you're actively thinking about changing the pricing on Type Dream,
Hmm.
and then sharing it kind of as your team is debating what
Hmm.
pricing changes to do,
Hmm.
like sharing that. So
Hmm.
basically sharing something that happened in the past versus something
Hmm.
that's happening now.
I actually do both of that. Like both share my learnings from something I did in the past versus what I'm gonna do that I need feedback from the community. So for example, we wanted to build analytics at that time for typing websites, and we just asked the public, like, what do you want to see from your website? Like the page view, the button click, like how many people click the button, and other important metrics from the feature that we were going to build.
Right. So that's really kind of building live. And then you you kind of get the feedback and then internalize it, and it becomes part of the discussion. So in that sense, it's the sixth
Mhm.
co-founder.
Yes, that's as the sixth co-founder. Yeah. About sharing the past, building in public to share about what we learned. In that sense, um, it's not the sixth co-founder role.
So in that sense, it's more just like Michelle sharing what she's learned, what she's gone through, or is that something that
Yes.
speaks to you less?
It's about me as a person sharing what we learned, what we went through, correct?
Cool. Do you think there's one that kind of comes more naturally to you, or do you have to work at it?
More naturally to me as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sharing the learnings would be more natural to me as a person because, like in sharing my learnings, I give my personal view to it. Like, although me and my four other co-founders experience the same thing, when we tweet about that same experience, we tweet it from our each like from our different point of view. So yeah, that makes me feel more human because I I involve my feeling and what I experience individually.
Got it. Um, so moving on to kind of I guess the sixth co-founder, because
Uh-huh.
you're a team of five co-founders,
Yes.
and everyone has a day job, everyone has part of the load. So the building in public, is that kind of like, is that part of the Kanban? Is there someone who has that as their task? Is it just kind of a passion project? Like, how do you decide how to allocate time to it? How much? Does it like, is it part of the marketing plan? Is it just part of your downtime?
Building in public is actually has recently become part of our marketing plan because we we like receive a lot of value from building in public. And yeah, so it's been my task mostly and with the CEO as well, Kevin,
Got it. So it's
because
really
the
made
three
its
other
way.
co-founders are technical co-founders. So yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
mostly just the two of us.
got it. And then it's really made its way into kind of the marketing playbook
Yes,
for.
it has. So, like recently, we just saw a lot of value from doing it in public, so we decided to put it in our like Kanban board as a marketing task.
Amazing. And because I think one of my personal challenges with anything social media related,
Mhm,
is that it really requires dedicated time,
mhm,
especially Twitter, just because Twitter does require, you know, specific formatting of threads succeed much better
uh-huh,
than others. You really
uh-huh.
have to think about how you're telling your story, how you're structuring your tweets, when you share it, all kinds of like, it's work.
Exactly. Yeah, it's work. Like to make it perfect, it's work.
Right. Cool. So how do you think about that kind of from a startup perspective? Um, and I'll I'll share kind of my own personal
Uh-huh.
struggles, which is I think one of the things about building in public that I really do like is sharing the numbers or sharing the stories that you
Uh-huh.
can't find online.
Yes.
And for me, that's kind of, I guess, taking it a little bit more to the like really building in public transparency theme. And for
Uh-huh.
example, there are lots of blog posts about how to launch successfully. There aren't many blog posts that share, hey, I did all of what these blogs say, and then here are the actual numbers. Like I got X subscribers, I got Y downloads, my conversion rate was this and that. Before we launched on Product Hunt, I couldn't find any of those. Like I looked really hard and I could not find a single blog that
Mhm.
said we put in, 80 hours of work, we spent $3,000 and it led to X MRR, Y subscribers. I couldn't find anything like that. And I just wonder why, right? And I guess people aren't sharing because it's not in their best interest. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then as a kind of as a venture backed startup, and I'll kind of finish this long
Mhm.
tangent soon. We had,
Yeah.
we had like we took product of the day, which was fantastic,
Uh-huh.
but it turned into something like 20 new subscribers. And there's kind
Okay.
of this big dissonance there, right? It's like product of the day, which sounds
Uh-huh.
great. We had 400, 500 upvotes, and then you have only 20 new
Uh-huh.
subscribers. Like it kind of ruins that story. And
Mhm.
as a venture back startup, you kind of want to have that rosy outline.
Yeah.
So what I guess the question is, how do you square those two, right? Where you want to have the rosy outline and not share the actual numbers, or unless they're really good, when you're especially when you're a venture backed startup that kind of lives from fundraise to fundraise. You need the FOMO, you need the hype.
Mhm.
um, and when you think about building in public, like how far on that transparency spectrum do you see yourself?
Um, I would say I can be really transparent because after our product hunt launch, I actually just recently, which is last week actually, I tweeted about how although we got number one product of the month, I actually talked about why it was not all successful.
In what sense?
In the sense that although we received a lot of new signups and new paying customers, some of those customers do not take our value for what we are. So our value is being a simple website builder. So some of those customers who came from Product Hunt come from a lot of different backgrounds, and I guess they didn't really understand what Typedream is. So they just asked us a bunch of feature requests for us to be just another generic website builder, you know? So although receiving a good amount of a good influx of user is great, we sometimes ask the maker of the product need to choose which customers are true customers that we need to listen to, and we just gotta fire our customers if they don't align with our goals because they will eventually, I would say, like ruin the product.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's kind of one way. Um, would you share like the actual numbers of new signups?
Actual number of new signups.
Yeah, and the goal is like I'm not trying to
Uh-huh.
kind of put you on the spot. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
wondering, like if if yes, why, and if no, why not? And kind of does that relate to the fact that yeah, we are a venture backed startup, and it's not so beneficial.
I guess so, yes, actually. Like sharing the actual number for a venture-backed startup, I guess I'm just worried that I have to be more careful. And then the second part is like not only being a venture-backed startup, but the fact that I have co-founders. I guess I feel the need to just check with them what to or what not to share, like what they're comfortable with, because everyone has their own level of like what they're comfortable sharing and what they're not, right? I can't just speak from myself about the whole team.
Right.
So I guess that's what makes the difference.
Right. So I guess let's kind of zoom in on that, because
Mhm.
I think that's a really interesting topic for especially for building in public and for
Mhm.
startups, which is like how do you square that circle? And I would just kind of love to hear like what you think about what is legitimate to share, what isn't, or is it just on a case by case basis?
To me, um, To me, what I share has to have a benefit. Like, why would I share something that has no, yeah, has no benefit, or and it's not necessarily bad, but just throwing the numbers out there and that's it, right? It has to have some like story behind it, or yeah, benefit in general. Because like if I tell people, okay, we got 15,000 signups from our product on launch, then what does that number mean? So what I usually do is share the story, like how I got there, or like what I think about the product on launch, something that they can learn from and something they can apply it to their situation.
Right. So there has to be kind of a tangible benefit and story to to the narrative that you're building.
Yeah.
Right. I think one of the interesting parts
Mm-hmm.
um, that I struggle with myself is kind of on the
Mm-hmm.
aspects of transparency and trust and
Mm-hmm.
authenticity, right? Where,
Okay.
like, when I also for myself, when I write anything that I share in public and as a reflection of
Mm-hmm.
my dilemmas, when I see other people sharing in public, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I have a more critical eye because I know that people aren't sharing kind of the real numbers. And
In
I know,
public.
yeah, in public.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And I think that's, and this is kind of an open ended question just to get your thoughts. Like, do you think that hurts the
Mm-hmm.
overall build in public movement, the build in public hashtag? Because at the end of the day, it is built on authenticity. And if the
Mm-hmm.
authenticity isn't there, then it's another marketing block.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. If you are not comfortable with sharing your true numbers, then better not to share it because it hurts the authenticity of building public, right? Only if you're comfortable with sharing the true numbers, then you should do it. I don't agree that people need to like just got pressured to share the numbers because other people are doing it. But since they don't really want to do it, they just share modified numbers.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't think modified numbers are the way to go. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you said something also. I think before we started recording that
Mhm.
like the numbers are the same whether they're in public or kind of on a presentation to investors. So
Uh-huh.
at the end of the day, and I thought that was a great point, right? Because if I'm
Mhm.
sharing the number of Alp users or the number of
Mhm.
subscribers we got on our product
Mhm.
launch, uh,
Mhm.
it's the same number. Like it's the same number.
Yeah.
It comes from our mix panel. It comes from our
Mhm.
data dashboard. Like the number itself isn't
Yes.
changing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, it has to be the same, right? Because you need to report
Yeah.
the true numbers. Well, I guess to answer your previous question, like I personally don't really tweet about numbers, and I feel like it's just because I don't know what my other co-founders are comfortable with, and I definitely need to check with them, right? What I can and cannot share. But so the things that I've been sharing so far is like my own story towards like what I experienced, what I personally feel from the experience that we experienced together. But it's my own take. That's why I'm 100% comfortable with sharing them.
Right. Do you think you'd ever be sharing, let's say, you're back in YC with Cotter and you're building in public?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, do you think you would have shared, or can you see yourself sharing that pivot kind of in real time? Or would it always have been like a story that you wrote after you started working on Type Dream?
Um, I think it has to be after, like, because it's a learning to me. Because when we're doing the pivot, like we haven't even validated the market. Maybe we were in the middle of interviewing Notion to website users to actually validate the idea, right? So I feel like it has to be after we experience all that that we can finally tell something. Because if I'm still in the middle of the pivot, then it might not be anything. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
A
it
hundred
might
percent.
not,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I just sent an investor update like 2 or 3 days ago,
Mhm.
and
Uh-huh.
one of the things I wrote was that we try to do 4 to 5 um, like different product tests each sprint,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's the only thing I know how to manage for. I have no idea how many of those
Mhm.
will succeed or fail. I
Mhm.
mean, honestly, like 4 out of 5 fail. So I have like a so I completely know that feeling of
Yeah.
while you're building, you have no idea if you're right or wrong or
Yes.
what you're going to learn.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Which is, I guess, why I'm curious. Like, is it building in public or is it just learning in public? Do you get
Um, yes,
my
yes.
yeah.
Let me think. Well, I guess like now that you touched about that, I guess you can always I guess you can always share your progress to the public, although it's not anything, because the public will help you. If it's not anything, then it's not like the public will mock you or anything, right? So yeah, I guess looking back at it, I guess I should have shared my pivot journey in public at that time because people can give their idea about what they think about this pivot, right?
Right. I mean,
Hmm.
yes, I think it's helpful. I also think, kind of
Yeah.
like what you said before, there has to be some point to it. I'm going back again to something that Kivan said, which is like users don't always have context, which is a very true statement. And so
Uh-huh.
sometimes just because you're building in public, like just because you're getting feedback doesn't mean it's relevant. So like I do think you have to be sharing it in that kind of context of value. You're creating value and you're receiving value.
Yeah. You have to do both, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really at least how I think about it. And this is I it goes into my own imposter syndrome around writing, which is, am I generating value by sharing thoughts, by sharing things? Um, and it's much easier for me in areas that I know that I've looked and I didn't find something that I was happy with. But I think like the value you share of, just really interesting stories about the example you just gave on Product Hunt, where, yeah, like not all users you get are relevant users. Like that's generating value for the community.
Mm.
So just to kind of start wrapping it up, what what 2 or 3 tips would you give to a founder or a founding team who wants to
Mhm.
start building in public?
Um, the first one would be to write your own story because, as you said before, um, the only thing worth sharing in public are the things that you can't find online, and the things you can't find online are your stories, your experience. So I really hate it when people just share facts that we can Google because they don't bring a unique value to us. Like, why use Twitter for this, right? So I feel like if you want to tweet about building in public, then tweet about your experience, something unique to you, something that is not available anywhere else. Um, and then the second one is be consistent because you never know which one of your tweet will take off. So I would say just keep on doing it until you find what people are interested. Yeah, like until you know how to do it. Like And then the third one would be to choose a few topics that describes you. Like for example, for me, the few topics that I chose is the first one, being a co-founder, like my journey as a co-founder, and then the second one is about YC, like what I learned from YC, how I got into YC, and everything about YC. And I think choosing these few topics are important because I just want to give my followers the right expectation. Like, if they follow Michelle, what will they learn from me, right? I won't like randomly tweet about NB or anything, even though I'm interested in that. So, yeah.
What just I guess two other questions. Are there any tools you use in terms of preparing your tweet threads, and how often do you try and be consistent?
For me, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would always tweet, but only one big thread per week. So Tuesday and Thursday would only probably be like a one sentence tweet or something. And the Wednesday would be one big tweet. At least that's what I try to do. I don't want to be online on the weekends, that's why. And then Monday and Friday, it's not that crowded on Twitter, so I just use Monday and Friday to observe and read other people's stories.
To prepare.
To prepare, yeah.
Got it. So where can people find you on Twitter? And where can they follow
Um,
Type Dream?
Type Dream is active on Twitter. Our username is Type Dream HQ.
Right. And you have a long Twitter handle, but
Yes, I know. It's
I'll
well,
link it. I'll put it in the show notes. But
okay,
it's
okay.
Michelle like underscore Wirantono. I hope I got
Without
that.
the underscore.
Oh, without the
Yeah,
underscore.
that
Okay.
that's exactly right.
Okay, got it. Well, at
Michelle,
least
and then my last name.
cool. Cool. Fantastic. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for coming on the Mountain Pass. This has been a really interesting chat for me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And yeah, it's been a really interesting chat for me as well. Got me to think.